Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Founders Fire podcast. This is Eric Beck. Today, we're going to talk about reinventing small business, reinventing your business, but also reinventing, in a sense, the way we think about a small business and things we can do systematically to make America fertile, really, for small business, to make it really a place where we see a thriving middle class, which is obviously disappearing, and it's if you're paying attention, it's probably pretty depressing. But there's a way out of this, and it really doesn't take a lot of effort. It takes solid leadership and good strategy, because we have so many creative people who want to bring their very best to the marketplace, to serve other people, and in doing so, not only to create a profit financially, but a profit relationally. A profit from the standpoint of enhanced lives, even the reality of creating jobs people love. It used to be that a job was a source of dignity, a source of respect, a source of pride. Jobs have become the race to the bottom, the franchise model of fast food. I'll use that as as a example. It's the lowest quality everything. It tastes great, but you feel terrible later. It's cheap, it's fast, it's easy. That approach to really unending growth, which is the mantra of our economy. You may not know that, but I'll give you an example of this, and just to kind of dive right into the depths here. So let's get sweaty. Did you know there is a backstory to why things are called goods? Okay, if you've heard the term dry goods or goods and services. Why is it called goods? Why isn't it called bads or so-so or any other word? Why goods? I'll tell you why. Because if you have something somebody else, needs, let's say it's a ball, and they're like, hey, I want that ball, and they have money. They could then decide that ball is good. It is worth money. And so they give you money, you give them the ball. And we call that collectively, in the system that is the worship of capital, we call that good. We use a moral term for that situation. And in that situation, on the face of it, that is good. But what happens if you decide to give the ball to the person and you don't make them pay any money? You say, you know what? I can tell this is something you would really enjoy. It would benefit you. It would benefit your life. And so I just want to give it to you. Our economy ignores that. In fact, it doesn't make GDP go up. So it is not a good. It's a nothing. What is happening to us that we've developed a system running on these kinds of ideas where it's only good if you can buy it? Think of how that hollows everyone out. Think of how that makes everything reduced down to money and the power inherent in owning money. This, to me, is at the heart of the spiritual problem around business. And while I'm not going to go into all the iterations of how this has invaded really every single part of our life, I do want to talk about one specific area, and that's as it relates to small business. Now, some of you guys who are small business entrepreneurs are going to be like, yeah, I know all this. You might, but you might not. This is going to be something that you definitely want to listen to. It's also the case that most people just don't know this. Most people don't know that over half of the economy is small business. If you just ask anyone on the street, what would you say made up half of the economy? Most people, even small business owners, are not going to say, small business, small little companies, mom and pop, the diner, the dry cleaners, the haircut place, a small business with 50 employees or less. How many of them are in America? We have 300 million or so people in our country. How many of them run a small business? Probably most people don't know that it's 33 million. Let me give you some other interesting statistics. Those 33 million small businesses, this is according to the SBA Office of Advocacy, those 33 million businesses make up 99.9% of all businesses. Okay, over half the economy And nearly 100% of businesses are small businesses. Nearly half of all U.S. employees are employed by a small business. If you think of it in terms of the breakdown, it's pretty interesting. 80% of small businesses operate without any staff. The remaining 20% still employ 61.6 million people. That's incredible. This is Bureau of Labor Statistics. 27 million of the 33 million small businesses are solopreneurs. What does that tell you? That tells you that America has been traditionally a place where you could pursue what was in your heart. Was it easy? No. Is it a guarantee? No. But there's still enough belief in our people. I'm not talking about the system. I'm talking about the ethos. That, hey, if I could do this better, if I could actually find a way to do this better, make this more valuable, this could work for me. And most of those small business owners didn't inherit it from some super rich family, trust fund sort of situation. It's not that. It's people who have a regular job, who get sick of working for the man and say to themselves, I have got to do something that I believe in. I've got to make a difference here. That is the flame that Founders Fire exists to feed and to nourish and to keep from getting extinguished. And there's a lot of forces trying to extinguish it right now. Here's another thing, I like this little phrase I like to use. Small business heroes are not fat cat corporate CEOs. So there's a lot of talk out there in the culture about, people who are business owners. They're screwing everyone. They're making it impossible. They don't want to pay anyone a living wage. And you can find plenty of examples of that. But in general, that does not happen in small business. I'll give you a good example. What do you think the multiple is of someone who runs a Fortune 500 company? Their salary. Okay. What's the multiple that is of an entry-level person at that same company? You pick one of the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies, just pick one. You know their names. Pick one. Go and look up, what does their CEO make? And you could just do salary, but if you want to get crazy, throw all the stock options in there and whatever else. What's their total compensation package? Okay. And then just go on Indeed or ZipRecruiter and see what a entry-level job at that company pays. Okay. You and I both know, is that multiple going to be 100 times, 1,000 times? It likely could be. You know what it is in small business? It's just 16%. It's not even double. It's not even half again. The difference between what an average small business owner makes and that starting employee is 16%. Thanks to PayScale and Guidant Financial for that stat. And then the last one I'm going to share with you, Gen X and baby boomers make up 77% of small business owners. That's businesses that are owned by people who are in the age range of 35 to 70. Okay. Very interesting. Why? Why would they have taken the risk? All of what we're talking about, this heart and soul to do something that is, that's better. And so I want to really talk about reinventing the game so that we can make a difference for these folks. This is a bigger topic than just Founders Fire per se, but it's something I think we all need to start thinking about, because as small business continues to go away, the middle class will continue to go away, and our company, that's true, but also our country will not be economically viable. We think, well, we need to bail out Wall Street because their argument to Congress is we're so big that if you let us fail, the whole economy will fall apart. And this has happened about every 10 years for the last 100 years. A couple of examples you probably know of, what happened in 2008. You probably know about the housing market and the derivatives and the credit default swaps and all the nonsense that went on. Basically, it's just placing bets on top of bets on top of bets. The rating system's rigged. All of it is slanted to make the big banks more money and to consolidate power. Of course, when it failed because they were making immoral and frankly illegal trades and all the other things that were going on, Nobody went to jail. I think one guy actually went to jail from like in Europe. But nobody got punished for that. What do we do? Well, you and me and every other taxpayer, not big business, because they don't pay taxes, right? You know that, right? Right. So you raise the tax rate on big businesses. They're not going to pay it. They're going to pay it. They're going to move their headquarters to Ireland. They're going to do whatever it takes to make money for their shareholders because their number one ethos, which we talked about at the beginning, is growth. And growth only happens when we do something that is good in the eyes of this warped idea of an economy that we're in, which means somebody has to do something for money. And if money is not involved, it is not good. If money is not involved, we are not growing. It does not affect gross domestic product. And therefore what? Therefore, we should avoid those things. Don't save your money, spend your money. And if you don't have enough money, use your credit cards. You see, a debt-driven, consumption-addicted economy, man, that's great. You think, well, what if I sold someone a car that was built so well they never bought another car? That is a bad. That's a bad. That's not a good. That's not goods and services. That's bad. Because how dare you make something that would last that long? You must participate in planned obsolescence. Because if they only buy it from you once, you're not going to make any more money. And the whole point is to make more money. So you can spend more, so you can work harder. We've got this whole, treadmill that we're on, right? With technology. Technology is going to make everything easier, more effective, more efficient. I was watching the U.S. Open tennis tournament here last weekend, and there was an ad that was, I don't remember the company it was for, but it was, using AI so you can work more efficiently. How much more efficient do we need to be? When would that ever end? I mean, just ask yourself, if you could be twice as efficient as you are today, would you want to be? Sure, I would. We would all say yes. What about 10 times? What about 1,000 times? What about 1,000,000 times? At some point, is it efficient enough? At some point, do we fall into the trap of the parable about the fisherman? I'll have to tell this one to you guys. I'm sure you know it, and I'll butcher it, but please, don't don't be too harsh. It goes like this. There's a fisherman. He's in some village in Central America on the coastline or whatever, and some fat cat from Wall Street's there in his, $10 billion yacht. And he goes ashore, and they're talking at this little fish market, and he's like, "Man, I'm telling you what, you really could do well for yourself." He's like, "So what's your life like right now?" He's like, "Well, I pretty much kind of get up when I want to, get my crew together. We go out on the boat for 4 or 5 hours. We catch fish, we clean them up, bring them back, get them ready to sell at the market. I have dinner with my family. We all go dancing, and we get to bed at 11 or 12 o'clock. It's a pretty great life. I don't really think I want to do much different." And the guy's like, No, you don't understand. What you got to do is get 4 or 5 boats and a bunch of different crews. And he was like, "Well, how am I going to do that?" I was like, "Well, you need to bring in investment capital." He's like, "Well, how would I do that?" "Well, you would sell part of your company's proceeds to bring in all this money so that you could grow." And, okay. He was like, "Well, so then what would happen then?" He's like, well, then you could become a big enough, fishing company that you could actually become publicly traded. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that your stock could be on Wall Street or one of the stock exchanges. And so people from all over the world would be investing in your company. You could have an entire fleet. You wouldn't just be, in this area of the world. You could be also on the West Coast, or you could be also maybe in Europe. And he's like, "Okay, then what would happen?" He's like, "Well, then your company would have so much money, you could sell it all and you'd be super rich." And he was like, okay, great. Well, then what would happen? He was like, "Well, then you could just sleep in. You could go out on your boat whenever you wanted to. You could just hang out, do what you want, have dinner with your family, go dancing in the evenings, and have a wonderful evening." And he was like, "I already do that. Thanks very much." You see, that's the nature of strongholds, in particular the stronghold of addiction. I feel like addiction is the number one thing we're all facing right now, is everything has been made for repeat buying. Okay, can we make those potato chips so darn good that you just keep buying more? Well, no, because people get full. You eat food, you get full. What if it's not food, though? What if it's made in a lab? What if it's sprayed with all kinds of stuff that kind of tastes like butter, but I'm not really sure what it is, but it's so good. And what if those chemicals suppressed your sense of feeling full? What if the packaging rattled in just a certain way? And what if you were bombarded by commercials about this all the time and everybody who you want to be like is eating these potato chips? What if that was happening all the time, 24/7, in every market? Well, people would buy a lot of stuff they don't need. They become very, very unhealthy, both physically, mentally, emotionally. We would all be less spiritually. But what wouldn't be less? The power of money. You have to know the scripture that's quoted all the time, right? The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. When money serves itself, that's what interest is, by the way. Somebody loans you $100 at 10% interest, and then after whatever period of time you owe them $110. Where did the $10 come from? What was bought or sold? What was the value there? Now I know you could say, well, it's the time. Really? Do we measure time in terms of money? Well, of course we do. You get in a car wreck and something's wrong, and how do you get justice? Money. This thing happens, that thing happens. How do you get justice? Money. Time is money. Time is not money. Time is your life. And if you think that your life is money, you have been fooled. We've all been fooled. We've all been brought into this world of every kind of addiction, and now we've got 90 neuroscientists on the other side of that smartphone. Peddling what? Oh, you fill in the blank, but I'll tell you what it really is. It's addiction. Keep you scrolling. Selling all your data, selling all your habits, selling all your thoughts. Now, you may think, wow, dude, you're like super negative. This podcast is like so negative. Well, yeah, but the reality is, and I learned this from my time in the military, if the people in a tragedy, the people who take the longest to actually admit what has just happened are the people who almost never survive. Okay, you're driving along in your Humvee, it hits an IED, spins in the air 6 times, lands on the roof, and you sit there going, I can't believe this happened. Golly gee, that's just terrible. I can't, surely, no, am I dreaming? Okay, meanwhile, it's about to explode. Meanwhile, the bad guys are all coming to kill you, right? Who survives in that situation? Okay, the person who was like, this just happened, what next? What's the next thing I need to do? And I love how Jocko Willink talks about this in his book, but that whole idea of when, what's important now, that little acronym. What's the next smallest incremental thing I can do right now? Now that's survivor thinking. That's heroic thinking. That's true leadership thinking. And so you might say, well, man, you gave us all these cool stats about how important small business is, but you're telling us that small business, imagine it like a little boat, a little blue rowboat. You're saying it's in a giant red ocean of sharks that are trying to destroy it and us with it. Yeah, that is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And opportunity and creativity and meaning and purpose is being drained out of the ethos of our country. And it's doing so for goods, for the sake of goods. You see, we have an economy that has to keep growing. That's why people don't care about the debt. Oh, who cares about the debt? As long as the debt isn't growing as fast as GDP, or the payments on the debt are not going to overtake some percentage of GDP growth, we're going to be fine. Who thinks that way? Well, most every economist will just go, well, no, that's our system. That's how it works. You don't understand. Well, if the dollar stays the reserve currency, we can play this game a little longer. But if it doesn't stay the reserve currency, that kind of thinking's well, the roosters are going to come home to roost. That's what I have to say. It's not going to be good. What do we do? First thing is you need to learn this. You need to learn what I'm talking about. You need to understand that every dollar that's printed is debt. Okay, did you know that? Probably you didn't. You didn't realize that when someone buys a house, they don't take money from one bank and move it into another bank. The bank just writes it into their accounting system. Shazam, a credit and a debit. Really? How's that work? I can't do that in my checking account. Right. You have to become financially literate to understand the red ocean that we're in. Now, am I saying that we need to pull it all down and destroy it? Heck no. That would be catastrophically bad. We do not want to do that. But we do need to change it. All right. So you're like, Eric, look, this is a podcast about entrepreneurship and small business and a spiritual connection to the real purpose of business. Are you telling me we all just need to become the chairman of the Federal Reserve and we need to somehow get in control of, all these huge companies? No. I mean, if that's what you're called to, please let me know. I'd love to give you some advice and help you with that. But no, that's not what I'm saying. Most of us don't need to do that. I'll tell you what we do need to do. We need to make sure our boat is blue in the context of a red ocean. Okay, what does that mean? That means, well, what can you control? Inside of your small business, you've got to start shifting so that your systems, the way you run your business and what you do is in alignment with your values. Most people have really good values, but their systems don't. Right? So the person is good, but their systems are not good. And I mean this in the real way of good. Okay, the real good. I believe in taking care of people. I believe in being fair. I believe in honesty, all that great stuff. Yes. Okay. I'm a good person. Okay. What about the systems you're using? What values are baked into those? What? Come again? My CRM, my pricing strategy, my marketing techniques, that's neutral. Those aren't spiritual ideas. Those are not moral ideas. Those are just business ideas. 2 + 2 = 4. It's a neutral idea. That, my friends, is what I call the fallacy of pretended neutrality. There are no neutral ideas. There are no value-less ideas. Every idea, and therefore every system based on ideas, is laden with values, typically hidden, and sometimes hidden on purpose, but often just hidden from sight. It's just not obvious. Like when you look at a tree, it's not obvious how sap might be moving through that tree, right? So it is, quote, hidden. It's not diabolical, right? I don't want to go off the deep end here on the conspiracies. It's not diabolical, but it's not easy to see. You got to know something about trees before you're going to get what's going on with the sap and the phylum and all the stuff. You can tell I don't know anything about it, but right, you got to be studied in that. You guys, we got to get studied in this. We got to understand the nature of money, the true purpose of money, or else it's going to use us, and it is using us. Okay. Here's something that you probably didn't think about. As a small business owner, half of our economy, 2/3 of our workforce, all those great stats, right? So vital. What protections do we have for small business owners? None. Okay, what protections do you have for an employee? All kind of protection. If somebody discriminates against them, if somebody treats them the wrong way, if somebody violates one of hundreds of statutes about how employees are supposed to be treated for time off, for maternity leave, for this thing, for that thing, there's an entire army of people ready to support those employees. Is that good? Yes. Maybe some of it's but most of it's great. Yeah, we don't need kids working in factories chained to a desk or some nonsense. Like, right. The moral depravity of some of the early entrepreneurs in our country and other countries is without question horrific. So we need to protect employees, 100%. Where's the protection for small business owners? When they're discriminated against, who do they go to? When they lose their biggest client and there's no income for their business for a couple of months, can they go stand in line at unemployment? What kind of benefits do they get? Did you know that employees enjoy $300 billion every year in annual tax breaks? $300 billion. How much goes to small business owners? $7 billion. It's not nothing. That's a big number. But let's just take 300 and compare it to 7. Okay. What happens when a business owner gets sick? Did they get paid time off? Did they get medical leave? What happens? Nothing. It's most of our economy. It's 99% of all of our businesses. It's most of our employees. And we have totally failed the American entrepreneur. Why? Because we think of entrepreneurs as the people on TV that run the big companies, that go into space or build a hotel or do something big and splashy. That's awesome. We need those people. We totally need those people. That's not most people. That is literally 0.1% or less, right? What about the 99.9%? What about those entrepreneurs? Who are those people? Those people are you. Those people are me. Those are the people that you pick up your package from at the UPS store or the grocery store or the small business in your town. Those are the people that we know. And you can talk to the owner. You don't get on a phone maze and you're waiting to press 1 and then 7 and then 9 and then, your call got disconnected after being on hold with a Fortune 500 company for 25 hours. Because why? Because they know you don't have any choice. And every time there's a big bump in the economy, what happens? Consolidation. Oh, sorry, you little guys. You can't really make it through this, can you? Because you don't have jillions of dollars in reserve and you can't go to Congress and say, I'm too big to fail, so no one's going to bail you out. So we bailed out companies in 2008. We did it with Amtrak. Okay, if you want an interesting assignment, go look up the history of Amtrak. How did Amtrak get formed? Well, it was Penn Central before it was Amtrak. And guess what happened? They made a bunch of crazy bets. And they're going to go bankrupt, and they go in front of Congress and they say, oh my gosh, guys, listen, we transport all the goods all across America. And if we fail, the entire American economy is going to fail. You have to bail us out. The taxpayer has to bail us out. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they did. We got Amtrak. Over and over and over and over, we have this ploy of too big to fail. But they're not actually that big. And if they are not made to pay for their bad decisions, what will they do? They'll keep making bad decisions. Because for my dollar, what it comes down to is incentives. So when you think about how things got to where they are, you just simply need to follow the incentives. And when we bail people out for horrific ideas that cost hundreds, if not thousands of people their lives and suicide, they're not going to be able to afford their mortgage. You think of all this stuff that's happening. You add on to that this idea of planned obsolescence. We're not going to sell you something that lasts forever. Why would we do that? We want to make you a customer from the day you're born until the day you die. You must keep earning and spending money. Your life is about money. That's the red ocean. So if you're new to the Founders Fire podcast, you're like, man, I don't know if this is the right episode to hop into. Well, yeah, hey, we're gonna sweat. I'm serious about seeing these changes happen. What do we need to do? Well, we need to get rid of what I call the self-employment catch-22. Did you know that business owners are taxed twice? Oh, no, not the guys that run the Fortune 1000 companies. Not them. No. Regular small business owners, the dry cleaners guy. That guy, or the girl that runs the restaurant, the corner restaurant, in the strip mall that's over by the grocery store. Yeah, her. She gets taxed twice. How's that? Well, you see, when you're an employee, you pay your taxes to the government on your income, but the employer has shut their side of the taxes they pay on your behalf. Oh, so there's two taxes, right? What happens when you're self-employed? You pay both. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. It's most of our economy. It's most of our employees. It's 99% of all of our businesses. It drives our country's hope for a better future, because that's why small businesses get created. Big businesses get created to be sold. Think about the difference between that. I've been working at this one dry cleaners, and it's kind of inefficient. Some of the clothes get damaged. I don't like the quality of the products that we're using. Golly gee, I'm going to do whatever I can, and I'm just going to go out on my own. I'm going to start my own thing, and we're going to do it the right way. That is why people start small businesses. Yes, and they don't want a boss. And yes, they'd like to make a little bit more than $15 an hour. Yeah, that's why. Why do you start a big business? To get some bigger business to buy it. The only reason to start a big business is to sell it. What does that do? It produces a downstream effect that's ruining our lives. Because how do you get a big business to look shiny and fantastic so that somebody else will buy it? Constant growth. And how do you get constant growth and constant profit? By getting people to buy stuff that they don't need. Because if you built them something that actually did what it was supposed to do, they wouldn't keep buying. Now, these diametrically opposed incentives are not understood by most of us. They're certainly not understood by our politicians. And because we are a very rich and very wealthy country and a very satiated at a certain level, I mean, oh my gosh, 4K football on Sundays and this thing and that thing, every possible distraction, every possible entertainment, everything at your fingertips. And I'm not going to go too deep back into the 80s and 70s where I grew up, but I had to wait until Thursday at 7 p.m. on CBS to watch Magnum PI. I had to wait. And if I didn't get there on time, I missed it. Okay? I had to wait to hear my favorite song on the radio, hoping that they would play that. KZST in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was waiting for that cool Toto song. Yeah. And when I saved up enough money after a month of mowing yards to buy an album, right, it was mine. I spent $10 to get that album. And I played that thing 1,000,000 times. Okay, what happens today? You could literally get every song ever created in the history of humanity for $10 a month. Why? Consumption. We must grow. Everything is about growth. But that's not really the right word. Growth implies a healthy thing. I would say it's cancer. That's actually what it is. And it is ever expanding, ever eating its own resources, and killing the host. That's the red ocean. Now, what are we going to do about that? Well, we need to get rid of this system that rewards all that. And it starts, in my worldview, it starts with small business. We've got to get rid of this whole double tax, no rights, no safety net, no help, nothing. Why? Because we think, business owners are just super rich and they just take advantage of everybody. Well, in the Fortune 1000, that's probably true. But the small business owners, they are trying to do good. And of course, Founders Fire exists to help them do good and help them do it in a way that is in alignment with their values. What would help this even further, though, is for us to not tilt the field towards consolidation, centralization, and this whole idea of unending growth. Like I said, I don't want to tear it down. That would be terrible. But we do need to reform it. Here's another thing that we need in small business. We need access to capital. The number one reason most small businesses fail, what is the number one reason? They run out of money. You can say, well, it was marketing, or the product wasn't that good. That all comes back to money. If you have money, you have the leverage and the capability to develop, test, bring to market, refine, and hone the business model. Now, how many people starting their first business have a clue about how to do that? Almost zero. So they fail. 80% of small businesses fail in the first year. It's probably even higher now. That was true back when I worked at eMyth around the year 2000, 2001, a long time ago. Okay. Why? Why does this happen to us? Well, access to capital is pretty hard. Could we get some rules, some laws, some incentives that made it easier for banks to loan money to small business owners? I don't mean loaning millions and millions of dollars. And I also don't mean sequencing the human genome so that you can get an SBA loan, right? The inefficiency, the total pile of red tape, it's hilarious. It's hilarious to see we're strangling our small business entrepreneurs who are leaping out there with their heart, not to just build a business to sell it, but they truly believe in it. And I'll tell you another thing. Every time we print money, we're robbing all of us. But are we robbing the big businesses? No. They do not have the same relationship to inflation that small businesses do. I'll tell you why. So let's say that we force the minimum wage to go up. We print more money, so we devalue the currency. Any of those things that are happening. What's the small business owner going to do? Well, you think, well, they're going to raise prices and stick it to their customers. No, they're not. No, they're not. I've worked with plenty of small business owners that haven't raised prices in over 5 years. Why? Because they know if they raise prices, that first customer they ever had, Mrs. Jones, who's on a fixed income, is not going to be able to come and get her hair done anymore. And they are so nervous to do right by Mrs. Jones, they will not raise their prices. So what do? Because everybody else raised their prices, the hairspray manufacturer and the electric company and the this thing and the that thing, all their prices went up. What is this business owner left to do? Well, you're like, well, what do they do? I mean, they're rich, right? It doesn't matter. Yeah, 16% more than their employees is what they make. 16%, not 16 times, not even double. Certainly not 1,600 times, right? Just 16%. So I'll tell you what they do. They don't hire. They cut back on their staff. Oh, see, I knew they were bad. No. Look a little deeper. Who's going to do that work? They're going to do that work. They'd much rather pay people to do that work. But when they get punched in the face repeatedly by this red ocean we're all in, that's the only thing they can do to keep their business afloat. They do the work. They do the work. This is a catch-22 that our system promotes, and we have to end it. Did you know this? In 1980, the federal minimum wage was $3.10 an hour. Okay, that's about $400 a month. Okay, and in 1980, the average rent for an apartment was $243 a month. So you made $400 a month, and you needed to pay out about $250 for rent. That's about 60%. So rent as a percentage of pay, 60%. Okay, great. Let's come to this year, 2024. Federal minimum wage is $7.25. All those years later. Okay, that's about $1,000 a month. What's the average rent right now? $1,500. That means rent as a percentage of pay went from 60%, where you had some left over, to 162%, where not only did it take every dime you made at that job, but more, just to pay rent. Not for food or healthcare or childcare or anything else. See, we're robbing the American public for the benefit not of business owners, but of Wall Street fat cats. That small business owner, we need them. You need to become them. You probably are them. We need a nation of owners. We need a nation of people with an ownership mentality who are not only excited to bring something useful to market, but they're excited to do it in a way that benefits everybody. It's better for the employees to have a job they believe in and not work, just be some number. It's better for the customer to get a higher quality product. It's better for the economy because most of it is, in fact, small business. And guess what? If we weren't making all those bailouts and spending trillions of dollars on people's bad bets, what would happen? Things would get better. We'd have a bigger tax base. We would. More revenue to do the things that we need to do to take care of all of us. But we would also create the right incentives. How many people who are, let's say, 17 to 30 years old today think that getting a job is a good thing apart from the money? How many of them think it's even a good thing with the money? What did we see during COVID? People just went home. They stayed home. You know what? Now that I think of it, I hate this job. Now, I use that quote all the time from that song back in the 80s. Everybody's working for the weekend. That's one of them. Take this job and shove it. That's another one, right? I'm taking what they're given because I'm working for a living. That's another one. So back in the 80s, the prophets of pop culture and pop music were speaking the truth, right? We have got to reinvent small business. Now, I'm hoping that this is getting to the ears of people who can and will make a difference at this larger systematic level. But for most of us, it needs to make a difference in our business today. So what I want you to consider is, where are the areas inside of your business that could use some real reinvention. Reinvention looks like, let me go back to the source, which is how I'm helping my customer. And is there a way that I can give my customer more value? Is there a way that I can give them more help, anticipate their needs, make their life easier? Can I really, truly help them? If you start with that question, and then you apply what I call, and this is what we teach in Founders Fire, the process improvement grid. That's what it's called. The process improvement grid. Add, remove, maximize, minimize. Take that true need or set of needs that your customer or your market has, and then go all the way around your whole business and go, what can I add, remove, maximize, minimize to make that better? Can I add something that I'm not doing? Can I stop doing something that I have been doing? Can I do more of something? I'm doing it, but I need to do more of it. Is there something I could do less of? I can't do none of it, but I could lessen that. If you use that simple 4-question grid, add, remove, maximize, minimize, with this spirit in your mind, what you're going to find is that reinvention comes a lot easier than you thought. And be careful, because we might have a nation that looks very, very different. One that is full of hope, one that is full of purpose, one that has rejuvenated our sense of hope and optimism for the future, not the least of which is, hey, we don't hate Monday anymore. We're not just trading 5 days of one thing for 2 days of another. We're getting off this addiction cycle, and we're starting to become grounded, healthy, capable people, which is your birthright. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys today, just sharing from my heart and some stats. What can you do? You can do what you can do. We'll go back to Jocko Willink. When? What's important now? What is the next smallest thing that you can do incrementally to move you in this direction? Love to have you guys join us in Florida at the end of the month, September 26th through 29th. We're doing a retreat for leaders and managers. We're calling it a leadership reset to really talk about a lot of these same topics, but get into details, taking action on them, making these things operational. So join us. Foundersfire.com is the website. We still have a few spots. Love to see you there. And again, thanks as always for listening, and we'll see you next time.